Running our own business isn't easy, and it can be a tough gig for all of us at times, and only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And on Scale Up Radio, we aim to help make things just that little bit easier by interviewing guests who have been where you are now, regardless of where you are on the scale-up journey, and maybe facing some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked well for them, as well as what didn't, of course. And we've also combined many of these lessons into a practical scale-up handbook called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And there's details of this at the end of the episode. So welcome to Scale Up Radio.
So hello, Will Norrell. Welcome to Scale Up Radio. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, thank you for having us. My name is Will Norrell. I'm a co-founder of Triplo ESG alongside Hellen Strickler. And essentially, we are an online platform that is aiming to make sustainability easier for SMEs. So essentially, a company can input in their sustainability data, and then we show them their overall performance, and then give them a list of recommendations of things they can do to improve that performance. So that's the business and me in a nutshell, I guess. Yeah.
Great. No, fantastic. So helping SMEs with their sustainability thinking and actions to improve. Yeah.
Yes.
Brilliant. So how long have you been going as a business?
Probably about 18 months now. So our journey was essentially, the initial bit was trying to get funding because it's kind of like a platform-based business, and we needed initial funding, and we didn't have that funding ourselves. So I'd say the first 9 months was essentially trying to get that initial source of funding, which I'm sure you're aware is not easy and it's quite challenging, especially when you just have an idea, and trying to get kind of proof of concept funding is a struggle. But we did it eventually, but it just took longer than we imagined, but we got there.
And how big are you now? 18 months in terms of, employees, maybe turnover? What are you sort of achieving?
So it's actually still just two of us, two co-founders. We do have two advisors. One is Rosalind Kenya. She used to work for De Beers, and she advises us on a lot of the sustainability aspects. And then Mike Peckham is another advisor of ours, and he has kind of a lot of experience in pretty much everything. You ask him about something and he seems to have worked there or knows someone there. And he just gives us a lot of advice on kind of how we're going to scale up the business. We're still actually pre-launch. So we're still building out the platform. We did a trial run last week, and we're doing another one tomorrow just to kind of check things. And then hopefully we're trialing it in the next few weeks with trial customers. So yeah, it's still pre-launch, still small, but getting there. And it's our first business, so I think we're kind of learning some things as we go as well, to be honest. Yeah.
Wow, really exciting, right at the very beginning in terms of everything you're doing. Fantastic. So let's just explore then the business in terms of what you do. So you talked about ESG, sustainability to SMEs, in terms of doing that. So take us through, how do you delight your customers? What is it you offer in a bit more?
So kind of what we're trying to say sets us apart initially is the advice that we offer. So I think we counted the other day, there's about 450 different bits of advice that we can offer to a business. So once they've completed an assessment, should come up with a list of things they can do. And there's a lot of them, but hopefully they kind of tailor down. And we don't just do environmental sustainability. So I feel like sustainability is thrown around a lot, but people usually think about the environmental side, whereas like the social component is something that's quite important to us. And so kind of ensuring that workers are treated properly, your supply chain is okay, and that workers within the supply chain are treated properly as well. Sort of diversity as well, health and safety is quite important, or very important, and just making sure that SMEs, like when we go through all of the advice and all of the things they have to do, there is a lot of things for them to do. So we're just trying to simplify social sustainability, but also environmental sustainability into one all place, I guess.
And you use the word social sustainability.
Yes.
What do you define by that?
Yeah, so ESG is obviously environmental social governance. They're kind of seen as the three pillars of sustainability. Obviously, environmental, I'm sure most people kind of grasp, but social sustainability is essentially making sure that we treat people fairly. And I think nowadays it's easy to kind of, it's kind of hard to say, but easy to kind of put the environmental side and then business profits first and then employees second. Whereas I think we're trying to say that if you put employees first, you'll then kind of notice a positive effect on the business. That's a long-winded explanation of social sustainability.
And if I was a small business owner, maybe I've got 5 staff, what would sort of social sustainability? So you've described that I could do, the environmental quite easily. Inverted commas, I agree. Easily is maybe not quite the right terminology there, but I can do that. I can understand that. What would I be thinking about then under sort of the social sustainability with my team?
So it kind of would depend on what the business does, but I guess if it's just office-based business, there's quite a few legal requirements which not a lot of businesses know. For instance, say it's just office-based, everybody's working on laptops. You need to offer free eye tests to all your employees. You also could offer kind of flexible working, how people get to work. Actually, that's environmental, but flexible working policies, noticing like mental health signs of stress, and kind of requiring people have efficient breaks, especially time away from screens as well, is a requirement. All of those are actually legal requirements. And it's sort of something you just don't know about until you research it. So it's also, we're trying to make the employees aware that they have these rights as well, like their employer should be providing them with these things so they know what to expect.
Yeah, okay, I can see that now in terms of understanding then how I would use. So, how do I use your platform then to help me do that? What's your sort of business model?
So it's a subscription-based model. You'll sort of go online and then be able to log in through the platform or just purchase like a package, depending on your business size. And then you'll be taken through to like the platform and you'll be able to input either your environmental data or your social data. You don't have to input all the social data at once. So you can just do like health and safety. And then we sort of give you suggestions of things you can do to improve that. And yeah, it's essentially, I don't want to say as simple as that, but we do try and guide companies through how to collect the data. But once they're on the platform, it's very much inputting that data in and then just seeing your results. And we calculate things like gender pay gap or like how diverse your team is, just figures like that. And then they will also be tracked over time. So you can come back in a few months and kind of update those figures and then see how your workforce or like your kind of key social sustainability or environmental sustainability metrics are changing.
Yeah, right. No, I see that. And those are the type of things you're talking about that, I came across in the corporate world, all these rules that we were, coming in that we had to report on, identify. So your platform is helping the SME owner to do what I would have been doing in a corporate environment in terms of doing that. Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. And so why would I want to do that as an SME then?
So firstly, because hopefully companies want to be environmental, but also we researched a lot about the benefits of environmental sustainability. So you often notice that there is a lot of cost savings in the long term when it comes to implementing a lot of environmental sustainability things. Also social sustainability, there's a lot of reports and data coming out that the better you treat your workers, the more productive they are. Not saying that you shouldn't treat your workers well just because they'll be more productive. You should obviously treat them well just because it's the right thing to do, but it does make the business better. There are also legal regulations coming out, such as something like a public procurement notice, where if you're part of like a consortium bid and the bid is over £5 million, even if you're just one really small SME within that, you need to have a net zero plan, environmental policy. You need to know what you're doing on your sustainability. So I think we've seen, like, over the past few years, sustainability and like the reporting side impacting large companies quite a lot. So they are more required. And then I think over the next few years, it's going to filter down. And so smaller and smaller companies are going to need to know what they're doing. So we're kind of prepping them for that. And so when that comes, they're just ready, basically.
And working with some of the health and safety stuff I used in the past, I can appreciate that, and the some of the environmental standards. So what's the marketplace like for providers like yourself in terms of within the small SME environment? What's the competition like? What makes you different and stand out, do you think?
So there's definitely competition coming into it. We often see people coming in and we're like, oh, like we look at them and some of their websites are really nice. And we're like, oh, that's nice. Like, yeah, you just look, obviously you're like, oh, don't want to slate competition, but everybody's different. And some websites are nice, some not so nice. And I think there's aspects we can take from that. But yeah, I think the marketplace is getting busier. The unique selling point we would say is just the level of advice that we have. Like, we've seen others come out with advice, but it's on the smaller side, probably around 20 to 30 bits, whereas we have 450. That includes social sustainability as well. Most of our competitors would only really manage or measure environmental sustainability. So we are trying to put the focus more on sustainability as a whole, because we believe it is like very interlinked. We are also, or will be trialing like a supply chain aspect. So like a large company will be able to view their supply chain, including like their carbon footprint and how their suppliers are performing socially. And that'll help tie into kind of like a unique selling point for us. So like a small SME can say, oh, we're part of this supply chain. And then a large company can see like their total supply chain and the emissions arising from that. So we're trying to have that as a unique selling point as well. There are a couple of companies that do that also, but we offer the advice component, whereas they don't actually offer the advice bit. So yeah, I guess to sum it up, the advice would be our core USP, I guess.
And is the marketplace growing for the needs of SME to have this type of reporting capability and understanding capability, let alone the advice capability? Advice I don't totally understand because it's always useful, but is it a growing marketplace?
Yes, definitely growing marketplace. We've seen a few pop up this year that are sort of new companies. So yeah, it definitely is growing and growing quickly, which makes sense because there's more regulation coming in. And I also think even if you look at 2 or 3 years ago, environmentally, a lot more news is on sustainability. So you'll see it often coming up on BBC, like the front page, like when a new emissions report is released, often like a tagline from that is like front and center on the BBC. So there definitely is a lot more. I think it's more like salient now than it has been in the past. And that encourages people to get into it.
Mm. So 18 months you've been going. Part of that was funding. So let us go back. Where did the idea come from? Where did you and your business partner start with this?
That's a long story. We both worked for a sustainability consultancy before and sort of ended up just deciding to do this. I think we sat down for a couple of weeks and thought kind of how we can help smaller businesses, because you saw a lot of kind of smaller businesses struggling with sustainability. So we sat down and thought, what's a way that we can actually help them? Because like a lot of the companies would measure, like initially it was just measure environmental performance. So how can we help them improve? And then that kind of formulated into the idea that it is now, where we're trying to encompass environmental and social sustainability. In the end, we'd like to do governance, but that's way down the line. I think we need to hone kind of what we have at the moment and sort of trial it and see what people think, basically. But yeah, I think it just started. I wouldn't say it was planned, but more, yeah, it's not the like unique origin story, I think, but it's just we used to work in it. You see the issues that companies have, and you think we can do something to solve that. So yeah, kind of logical in that sense.
So you came up with a sort of, we can do better than this. We can help people in terms of doing that. What happened next? How did you get to the first stage of, looking for funding, etc.?
So I'd say we were very new to it all. Fortunately, we had the two advisors who were like, "Oh, you could try this." But yeah, I think we just started Googling stuff. To be honest, there was nothing that fancy, but we just started Googling funding for businesses and seeing what we can get, applying for a fair amount of stuff. Yeah, I'd say we're very green, if that was the word for it initially, whereas maybe a bit more realistic now, because initially you're like, oh, we can do everything and get funding for everything. And then you find, actually we go for like a smaller grant and just apply for like an MVP basically, and then get funding for that. And then it's what we're doing now and just kind of building on everything.
And having good advice in the early days is a great, great thing that a lot of business owners would love to have. So, that's an amazing start in terms of that thinking with people that experience, giving you some thoughts and structures. So you've built a minimum viable product. How have you gone about, the software development then? Because you're not software people. So how have you done that?
So yeah, we are not software people. We both actually did history at university. So
okay.
Probably the opposite. We just ended up, so our first load of funding was through a technology accelerator. And on that accelerator, there was a tech mentor, and kind of he advised us, he kind of gave us a list of people. He was like, I would recommend these people. And one of them is the developer that we work with now. So we just contacted them, and then he helped us put together like a tech brief, design the database. And then so we now have experience doing that. And then we showed, like we went to all these developers and we're like, this is what we want with like this. It was pretty in-depth tech brief. And they were quite grateful for it. Actually, they were like, oh, usually we just get like an idea, whereas we don't get this, which I think was helpful on our part, because then you can make sure everything's in budget and kind of know what you're getting. So yeah, and then we just contacted them, and then we're still working with them.
So going on this accelerator, actually again picking up on the advice you've done, and it's interesting, you're picking up people's advice and you're actually doing that. You built through another technology person a technical brief, keeping within budget. Wow, amazing. Yeah, I've done lots of software development in my part-time, and keeping within budget is a very hard thing with software development. But it comes down to really good activity around defining requirements to the level that you can do. So yeah, well done in terms of doing that. Anything that didn't work, didn't you wish that you've learned in the last 18 months in terms of, we could have done that a bit better, for other people that are starting up?
Anything we could have done better? Trying to think. I think there's a lot, maybe not that it didn't work, but a lot that we just didn't know about, and that I would say is not publicized about running a company. So it's our first time running a company, and there's just a lot of details which I think, whether people take them for granted who already run businesses, or whether they're just handled by other people, I'm not sure. Like filing accounts, didn't initially know how to file accounts. R&D tax credits, didn't know about. Confirmation statement, but that's fairly easily. Stuff with pension regulator, HMRC logins, filing stuff on Companies House, all kind of very practical stuff that comes with a date that we weren't 100% aware of until a letter came through the post. Yeah, I think there's a lot of, when you're receiving advice and help, a lot of it's high level and then less, it's often kind of what value can you bring, target market, which all are necessary parts. But then I think there's often a part of, it would have been nice to just have a checklist of these things are coming as well. Just make sure you do them. So yeah, we got that eventually. And we're on top of everything now. Like we have accounting software. Whereas initially, like our first set of accounts was done using Excel, which, yeah, I'm sure you can imagine wasn't ideal, but then there wasn't a lot to go on it. So it was okay. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. I started my business just over 2 years ago, and the first 2 months it was on a spreadsheet, but I'd already recognized straight away that, getting zero up and getting that happening was really important. But, one of the key things in even something like that is, well, what should the bill of accounts be? How should we define the account structure in terms of the charter of accounts? It's just, lots of little tips that, it's good to go and get advice from. I got an accountant very early on because I recognised I needed to do that. Yeah. Interestingly, even in startup training, they don't give you that type of thought. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah. I guess a bit of advice would be a good accountant. If you can, I think, that's a solid takeaway.
Yes. Yeah, no, I would agree with that very much so, very much so. So you and Hellen work together. How have you sort of developed your strategy? How do you work together to ensure that you're delivering it in terms of doing things?
So, firstly, one of the advisors, Mike, he kind of helped us because he's done kind of commercialization before. He kind of sat down and said, what are your goals? And then he'll sit down with us occasionally and be like, how is everything going? I guess we kind of have a to-do list. Generally, sometimes there's some things we just mentally know that need doing. So they're kind of less written. But then each week, I think we're trying to go through and sort of come up with a list of things that we need to do. And then I'd say, and then we just kind of pick off what we want to do more than kind of discuss it. I'll be like, I'm doing this and this, and Hellen will say, oh yeah, I'm doing that. And then we just use WhatsApp because we both work from home, and we use WhatsApp to just talk, or sometimes video call, depending if it's needed. And I guess it's very fluid at the moment. Like, we know what needs to be done. We know that we're trialing the platform. We have a list of trial customers or people who are prepared to trial it. And then all the kind of plans and cash flow will feed into a strategy. It's less written. Elements are written, but I wouldn't say everything was written down. So yeah.
And in terms of then making the key decisions, how do you go about doing that?
Key decisions. We are just call and talk about things. Right. Sometimes, because there's just the two of us, it's fairly easy. There are times we both come at it with a different perspective. But yeah, I mean, we usually resolve that and think what is actually best. And it's kind of less opinion based and more kind of what is actually better for the business, more so than kind of I like this and I like that. So yeah, I think we're quite good at resolving issues together.
Excellent. And you mentioned cash flow. Cash is king. This is the most important lifeline of every business. How do you keep on top of cash and making sure you're okay?
So fortunately, we got, obviously the initial funding from Betaden was the technology accelerator, but then we got a second load of funding from Innovate UK, and we're currently sort of using that to fund the development. And I guess expenses wise, we don't really have that many expenses. So we're sort of fairly lucky in that regard. And then we aim to kind of bootstrap once we come out of this kind of period of development. We'll trial it and then kind of bootstrap the business next year. We will go for other funding, but I think that's more just, that'd be a bonus if we get it, but we aim to bootstrap, really. So yeah, obviously cash is king, but we have minimal costs at the moment, which I think it's just the type of business that we run, because it's software, it's online. We don't need premises, we don't need employees yet. So yeah, we're lucky in that regard.
So the next really important thing after cash, then, you've built the structure of the service, and you're testing it, marketing. How are you going to go out and find all those amazing clients that you need next? What are your plans?
So marketing's a big one. Marketing, I think we've got a list of events to go to. I think there's quite a few, like Federation of Small Businesses, and we've worked with Mike on what we're going to do for marketing. A lot of social media. We need to be posting more than we do. Go to events, and also contacting, like, we've identified a few companies that we know kind of want to do something with sustainability, but don't actually have like a set plan already. So we are going to be contacting them. So yeah, I guess marketing is something I guess has taken a backseat initially, and it's something we're going to be working on in the next few months. It was just product development, then marketing, I think. And we're both not marketing people, unfortunately.
Yeah. Marketing will be key in terms of the growth and activities for that. So, and while you've got a sort of basic plan, what are your thoughts in terms of the growth opportunity for you?
I think there's quite a big growth opportunity, largely because I think partly we want to target councils and get them to kind of help us sell the website, because a lot of councils kind of have pledges to try and help businesses within their catchment area, but don't actually have a lot going on in that sense. There are some councils, if you look at Worcestershire County Council, their sustainability like agenda, I guess, and what they do, they do a lot, and they're very on it. And then I think you can use them as a comparison for other councils and see, this council could be doing more, and we can help them do more by kind of licensing out our software to a certain number of businesses within their catchment area, or within their district. So that's one aim. That's one way we aim to get customers, and that'll also help us grow a lot more quickly than if we were just targeting individual SMEs.
So the idea for the business came out of working in the business. What sort of drives you crazy about the industry? What would you change now if you had a magic wand?
Crazy about sustainability as a whole, and crazy good or crazy bad?
Either way.
I think there's a lot of people saying they're going to do stuff and then not actually doing it. There's a lot of, I guess, so there's certain certificates that you can get. Like there's one called a carbon reduce certificate, which companies can apply for, and then show and demonstrate to clients, but you don't actually need to reduce your carbon footprint to get it. So 1 year you could have like 100 tons, and then next year you could have 120 tons, and you can still get this carbon reduced certificate, even though your CO2 is going up. I think there's a lot of stuff that's wrong with that. And I think that kind of embodies a lot that's wrong with sustainability. That's wrong with kind of sustainability reporting. I think some companies, more use it as marketing than see kind of the proper opportunities that lie within it, and maybe don't see it as a priority. Whereas I feel like for Hellen and myself, we see it as something you have to do. And if you don't do it now, you're going to have to do it in the future. And it does affect everybody. It will be affecting everybody in the future. So yeah, there are elements which drive us a bit mad about it. And I think, yeah, the kind of, I don't want to say pandering, but kind of pretending to be sustainable is one of them. Not that many companies do it, but there are some that like to do it. So yeah.
And in terms of, that pent up opportunity, that people need to know about this and will then want to do that in terms of doing things. You've talked about that. How are you going to go and preach to people in terms of doing that? Because that's an important message. It is a vital message that you've got and it's talked about there. Not just for businesses, SME businesses that want to do it, but actually you will need to do it. What's your sort of plan to really sort of go out there and champion that?
I think there's a plan to kind of focus on the benefits of actually doing sustainability, like the cost saving elements, especially like in the current climate. We can say that if you implement sustainability, and there is data that businesses who implement sustainability do often face kind of lower operational costs and are financially more stable and better able to kind of weather through financial kind of recessions and financial downturns. So I think a focus on the kind of positive aspects which kind of relate to the business instead of the kind of wider, oh yeah, we need to do sustainability because temperatures are rising. So I think kind of making it more personal than just kind of making it relatable and personal, I think is the route we aim to go down, and less kind of the, oh, you have to do it just because kind of thing. So yeah. And
so 5 years time, we'll meet up again and have a coffee and talk about the last 5 years. So what's the plan? What's going to happen over the next 5 years to make it really successful for both you and the business?
I think just scaling up. So establishing a good customer base, but then also establishing what customers like on the platform, what we can do better, and then what we can change. So like, as the platform is at the moment, I'm sure there's stuff people aren't going to like or stuff people will like. We just need to keep adapting it and improving it so that it's better for people, it's more useful for people, and then it helps companies become more sustainable and hopefully kind of gives them those business benefits that we talked about. So we'll help them reduce operational costs and save a bit of money, and also make them more productive. So yeah, essentially that really. 5 years time, hopefully we might have a workforce as well, like a development team in-house would be nice, and a marketing team would also be nice. But yeah, also doing kind of large global supply chains is something I'd be interested in, and kind of seeing how you can make things more efficient and potentially quantifying how much CO2 you've saved at some point. But I think that's a longer term thing. So yeah, there's a few goals in there. Yeah.
And for yourself, what personally will you be doing in 5 years' time?
5 years' time, I'll be 31. I have no idea. Yeah. Actually, yeah. I actually don't know the answer to that question. Yeah.
Some people have goals which their businesses are a part of helping them achieve goals. Some of the goals are, the business and how much you want to be working in the business and how much not working in the business, etc. So it depends on how that goes. So specific goals for this year, what are you trying to achieve in the next 12 months?
Next 12 months, trial the platform as it is. That includes the environmental, social, and supply chain aspects. And then get customers on board. Those are the two main goals. And then I guess if there's a third one, it's just to change the platform in line with customer feedback. So yeah, and I guess earn a bit of cash on the way and keep up keep cash positive.
Excellent. Yes.
So yeah, four there for you. Yeah.
Well, Will, thank you very much. A really interesting conversation. Right down, I talk to different businesses in terms of their growth and where they've got to, etc. It's not often I speak right back at the very beginning in terms of what and that's awesome. And thank you so much for for your openness and honesty about where you are and what you're doing. So you're only 18 months in. The amount of learning you've gone through, and what I love is the fact that you actually took that learning, and you've applied it and used that. Finding two advisors early on, what a fantastic advice in terms of doing that, because those people have really given you some thoughts in terms of how you're taking it forwards and advice and the structure of that. And that, advice as to a business owner is some of the most important things that you can get. The platform that you're building, focusing on all the funding to develop that platform and take that forward. Brilliant tip, in terms of anybody that's wanting to build a platform or build any online stuff. A really good brief really helps define that, so finding someone to help you create that brief, which the background you didn't have. So, really thoughtful advice in terms of doing that. And your long-term plan in terms of how you're going to grow and develop, is really interesting in terms of, that thinking about councils and how you help councils, in terms of their requirements, because this is all coming towards us, maybe a bit like a juggernaut. We have to have these elements in place. And I think the key thing, the learning there, is what makes you different. You've talked about the fact that you have all the advice built in. It's not just a measuring tool, it's an advice tool. And actually going back to that thinking, it's that advice that you learned, the advice that other people have given you have helped you achieve and get to where you are today. And actually having advice in the system, I think, is fantastic in terms of the thoughts and ideas for that. So, it's been really interesting to have that conversation. I really look forward to catching up with you in 5 years' time and seeing what you've achieved. That's just brilliant in terms of that. Good luck with all the growth and your plans to achieve that, because it is a vitally important thing, because SMEs need advice, and here's a tool that they can use to find the advice they need around the social responsibility in terms of doing things, but not just that, health and safety and other elements. So yeah, fantastic idea and a fantastic tool. So we always finish off with a quick fire round, if I may.
Okay.
Let's have a go at some of these questions. So if you go back to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
I'm not sure I'd do much differently. I feel like we learned a lot doing what we did.
No, that's great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're on a path in terms of doing that. Brilliant. Books, any books you've read, recommend to our listeners?
Range by David Epstein. It just kind of talks about how you don't need to specialize in a topic to become good at something. It's just, if you learn lots of different bits from a lot of different places, you can kind of connect the dots, and then it gives you a different perspective to people who are kind of a specialist within that area. So I think that was actually quite a good book that I read. That was quite insightful.
So onto your mobile phone, are there any apps on your mobile phone that really make a difference for you?
I'd say it's the very generic, unfortunately. WhatsApp I use a lot. Instagram, I guess, as well, just to contact people. Any apps that make a difference. The main ones I use are Spotify, WhatsApp, and Instagram.
My favorite question of all, who's had the most influence on you as a business leader?
Be Mike or Hellen. If it's myself personally, Mike or Hellen. Just because I know them and they give advice and stuff like that.
And finally, Will, how can people get hold of you?
We do just have an email on the website, info@Triplo ESG. And if you're kind of looking to make sustainability easier, or you don't know where to start, then just please feel free to reach out to us. And we'd be more than happy to talk to you about what we can do to help and what we offer. So info@Triplo ESG, and let us know if you have any queries or comments, and we'll be happy to answer.
Awesome. Well, Will, thank you very much for this conversation today. It's been fascinating in terms of the life of small business and what your plans are to grow. So I wish you lots of luck.
Yeah, and thank you for having us. It was really great chatting.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.